Dusty Hayes, welcome. Thanks for doing this. First of all, what do you do for work?
I'm a music journalist for Music Scene Media.
And how did you get into that space?
Well, I started out writing for literary magazines, stuff like that, kind of covering a range of topics. But one day I found an Instagram post for a different music magazine. Um, Submitted a piece that I had had kicking around, trying to get published to them, and then just kind of took off from there.
Very cool. Did you go to school for this type of thing?
I did not. I actually went to school for computer science.
Really? Wow, no
Yeah.
kidding. And so I'm curious, what made you transition?
So I was finishing up school right around when COVID happened, and that kind of just completely crashed out the job market. It's still really reeling from that. I think that well, I heard, I don't know if it's actually true, that right now in America, that's one of the highest unemployed fields.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how you pivoted or transitioned to where you got into the music space and started to find work within the music industry?
So I was writing for literary magazines, like I said, and
Yeah.
that was really just writing spec articles, throwing them around, seeing what stuck to the wall. I had this piece that I wrote about a band called Max Sabbath, which is a McDonald's themed Black Sabbath cover band.
Okay, cool.
Um, I had that, I was sitting on it probably like a year, just throwing it around to anybody that I thought might be interested in it before I finally found this magazine called Uptight, which at the time was brand new. They had just started up a couple of days before. So I submitted the piece to them. They liked it. They ran it. And then a few days later, it came out that they were hiring for staff writers. So I told them that I would be interested, and they brought me on. I wrote for them for about 8 months before some things happened within the magazine, and it kind of just slowed down and came to a point where it seemed like it really wasn't going to go anywhere, and I moved on to where I am now.
And how did you find that next job to where you're at now? Did you just develop contacts and networks within the space and asked around?
Pretty much, just people that I met along the way pointed me in a few directions. I had filled out a few different magazines, but this was just the one that took me on.
Gotcha. Okay. And what does a day in the life of a music journalist actually look like? Like, what do you really spend your time looking at and doing?
Well, it all kind of starts with finding something to write about, you know. I do have a column that I do, which covers underappreciated albums from overrated artists. So I just did a piece that came out today on the Ramones. I covered Subterranean Jungle. But a lot of what I do is actually covering smaller bands who are starting to get a foothold within the scene.
So, like indie
And
bands for the most part?
a lot of that, some of them are like really brand new, self-representing. They have a couple of singles out, but it also gets up to the point of like I have agencies that contact me directly to write pieces for their bands. But a lot of it is finding stuff to write about. There is just so much new music out there, and there's more and more coming out every day. You have to really wade through a lot of stuff to find something that you can write a whole article about. So a lot of my time is spent doing that, and from there, once you've hooked into something that you know you can write about, it's really just a matter of sitting down and busting the article out. It could take an hour to a couple, and then from there, the editing process is pretty quick, and then it gets published.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I saw in when I was doing a little bit of research on you before this, and I saw you had written an article where I think you had mentioned like the best way to discover new music is to watch music videos with a bottle of rum or something.
Yeah, that's my go-to. Saturday night, you will find me chilling out on my couch, just flipping through whatever YouTube shows me, and that's actually where I find a lot of the stuff that I cover.
Who are like some of the best up and coming groups right now that have really caught your attention in the up and coming space?
Ooh, so we have a local band in the sense that they started here. They tour the nation now, called Disco. They're a jam band that I think they're really heading somewhere big. They've gone in the last couple of years from just the first time I heard from them from being, a not quite locally contained act anymore, but really like, not nationwide to the point where they go all over the place. They've been on, I think this is the second leg of a tour already this year,
Okay.
and it sounds like they're cooking up some new stuff too. Um,
Awesome. In your
on t-
opinion, like you mentioned that there's all these like new bands breaking through and this and that, and there's all these or a lot of new music coming out every day. Like, what causes a band or a group or an artist to break through in the modern world? That aside from just talent, because there's got to be other important factors too, right?
Absolutely, it's tough to get anything to really have attention these days because pretty much everything's online. You don't go hitting the street putting up band flyers anymore. I mean, if you're playing like a basement show, that's a good way to get the word out. But if you're putting out
Sure.
a new single, you're not going to get a whole lot of views on your SoundCloud by putting up some stickers around town.
Right.
So a lot of it is learning to play algorithms and just figuring out how to get your stuff seen by people, which I don't really particularly understand. It seems like it's a nightmare, and I'm glad I'm not on that side of it.
Right. Oh,
I'm on
totally.
the side of just finding stuff.
Right. Yeah, it seems a lot better, a lot more enjoyable. In your opinion, do you think that leaning into the algorithm diminishes some of the authenticity potentially for these artists?
I think it depends how you go about it. There's definitely cases I've seen where bands come off as just more so marketing machines than people who are putting out music they really care about.
Mm,
But
yeah,
there really is a certain level of just shameless self promotion you have to do now.
sure. Gotcha. Um, Let me ask you another question about your job specifically. What part of your job as a music journalist might people romanticize that isn't actually the case?
I would say probably coming up with ideas. You talk to a lot of people who are new to writing, and they always mention how they have so many ideas kicking around in their head, so much stuff that they want to write about. But you can write about whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean people are going to want to read it. You need to have some kind of hook or an angle if you're going to flush out 800 words about a single.
How much of your work is driven by passion versus the need, getting caught up in the need to just hit deadlines?
A lot of it's passion. Really, with music, it's convenient because I'm not ever writing about the same thing twice. It's
Right.
always something new for every piece. So it doesn't tend to get extremely monotonous. There's definitely been cases where I've gotten stuck on a piece for longer than I wanted it to take, and
Mm.
by the end of it, it was just like I need to just get this out and over with. But
Yeah,
for the
sure,
most
sure.
part, it's just really enjoyable.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Um, is there any particular aspect of being a music journalist that you like the least?
Oh man, editing. Um, you know, it's convenient now because there's like AI grammar checkers, like Grammarly, where it'll point out to you everything it flags as wrong, but you can't just hit uh, correct all because it also will.
It'll miss some stuff.
Y- yeah, it's a computer trying to think. It makes a lot of mistakes, and if you let it just do its own thing, you're gonna come out with some garbled mess.
Right. I'm really curious to know a little bit about how AI might be affecting music journalism because obviously a big part of that's writing, obviously another big part of it's actually, like the journalist aspect going out finding stuff. And I guess that would be harder to replace. But how do you see AI impacting music journalism?
Well, there's been a pretty big pushback against AI in creative communities. I
Do you think
don't
that's just
think
bias though, to a degree?
absolutely, creatives don't want to be replaced.
Right.
We don't want to see something that is supposed to be a representation of human passion be done by robots.
Sure.
Um,
There's been a lot of
however,
really interesting tools. Sorry to interrupt you. I was just gonna say there's been a lot of like really good, impressive results, like musically from a lot of these tools, like Sunos and what have you.
sure. Um, there's like entire bands now that you call them bands, but they're really just things that have been generated. It's not music that someone made, like AI made it.
Right, and they're just like playing it.
Yeah, and to be honest, some of it's not bad. You can call it soulless, which I suppose it is, but when it comes down to it, some of it does sound pretty good. However, there has been such an extreme pushback, not just from the journalist side of this scene, but also from the musician side. Nobody wants to see anybody else get displaced, so most people aren't really willing to work with AI in that way. There's definitely ways that these tools can be used to to aid in our work, but it seems like the idea of full on replacement has been met with a lot of hostility.
Sure. And what are some of the ways that they could aid in the work?
Well, in my case, like I mentioned, one thing that really helps is definitely the grammar checker. You go through a 1,000 word piece, like I'm gonna miss something. So it's very nice to be able to take something that I've edited and then run it through just a website that'll take 5 seconds to double check it for me and point out, oh, you missed this, this, and this is what you should do to fix it.
Right, totally. Um, what's your process like for deciding what's worth covering and what's just noise? Because a lot of it's probably your own personal preference, but are there other criteria that are important?
Well, like you said, most of it is personal preference. Something
Okay.
that I think is just noise, maybe someone else who is in music journalism will really like and will write a great piece on. But there's definitely a point where like production is a big matter. If you recorded your song on your busted iPod from 2014, it's not gonna be at a quality where I'm probably gonna want to write anything about it. Which even at that point, there's subgenres where stuff like that is the norm. It's not maybe the scene that I'm in, but there are people who do dig that stuff.
Have you found any genres from doing this job that you don't think you'd have discovered otherwise?
I've gotten um, much more into punk music since I've started writing for music scene specifically, which is a genre I was already kind of into, but I wasn't very deep into it. And since writing for it and getting to the point where I'm discovering brand new bands and I'm attending shows and interacting more with the community, I found that it's a lot deeper than I ever really understood it to be.
Hmm. In what way?
There is more subgenres to punk than I could ever count. And it's the subtlest things that set them apart.
Okay.
Um, Sometimes to the point where like I really even couldn't tell. One thing that I guess sets a lot of punks apart is they call them their battle vests, battle jackets. The vest they wear that it's got like all the patches and stuff on them.
Totally. Yeah.
Um, the way they decorate those can be very specific to the specific niche that
No
they're
kidding.
into, and it's actually like an entire culture within punk music about how you go about decorating your battle vest.
Wow. So it's like a subculture within a subculture almost.
Yeah, it's insane.
That is, I never would have guessed that. Wow. So the music, you couldn't necessarily decipher the difference in style necessarily, or could
There's
you?
definitely a difference between certain uh, subgenres within punk. Like obviously, there's a big difference between the Ramones and the Offspring, but there are also genres where I, as someone who punk isn't like my main go-to for music, I can't really tell the difference. but people who are very into it can.
Sure, sure. One question I thought of that isn't on my list here that we had gone through, but do you know the Voids at all?
I don't think I do.
Okay, interesting. Do you know the Strokes?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, so the lead singer has another band called the Voids, and they
Okay.
just released a new album. They're more like indie. They're into that scene. They collaborate with a lot of indie artists, and they're probably my favorite band, to be honest. And they just released a new album. I was just gonna ask if you had heard it, but if you don't know who they are, then no worries.
That's that's something I found a lot too, is that a lot of really popular bands, either the entire band or maybe just one person from the band will have another side project that's
Yeah,
just
right.
as good, if not better. Like for
Dude, I
example,
swear.
Green Day. Have you ever heard of the Foxborough Hot Tubs?
Oh no, I don't think so. I'll have to
So
check them out.
Foxborough Hot Tubs is a Green Day side project, and it's all of the main members of Green Day just playing under a different name. And they only ever put out one album, but it's a really good album that if it was released under Green Day, I think would have gone platinum.
And do you think the reason that you're seeing more people do that, I guess, is because if a certain band gets so big, like Green Day or The Strokes, they almost become beholden to their own style. And when a lot of these people want to branch off, they don't necessarily have the creative freedom due to their ties with the record label or whatever else, or maybe other reasons.
Yeah, you definitely at a certain point get kind of captured by your own image.
Yeah,
When you're to that level of like Green Day, people go to a Green Day concert, they want to hear Green Day. They would probably be pretty upset if, Billy Joe Armstrong came out and started just playing on an acoustic guitar.
totally.
Um,
Yeah. Kind of becomes its own thing in a way.
it really does. On top of that, I think part of it's also that with the rise of the internet, there's been a breakaway from labels where that's still a really good way about going about it, but you don't necessarily need a label to be a major artist anymore.
Sure.
So to go out and start your own project is really just as simple as having a computer.
Yeah, in this day and age, for sure. Yeah, it's a lot, I guess, more accessible because you can go the indie route. And then you got to do like the social media and stuff. And there's a lot of like, you have to do all that yourself. And that's kind of its own job in and of itself. So I guess there's trade-offs to it. But, you hear horror stories, obviously, about like,
Yeah.
what happens to a lot of indie groups with record labels. And, it's pretty gross, right?
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely uh labels and producers out there that will and do take advantage of their bands, and you completely circumvent that by going the indie route. But then, like you mentioned, you're at that point completely in charge of your production, your own management. You're gonna have to set up shows. You're gonna have to work out contracts. So it's a trade off of what do you think is the greater evil?
Sure. Yeah, I guess it's a good trade-off for people who are interested in learning that side of the business too, because that's its own skill set in and of itself. If people branch out
Absolutely.
of music and they want to get into the production side, like you're forced to learn that skill. So that's like invaluable in its own right. So I would say it makes total sense to go that route and just figure it out yourself.
For sure.
Do you play any music at all yourself or write music at all?
I don't so much anymore because nowadays I live in an apartment in Indy. And the thing is that I'm a drummer, and I don't think my neighbors would appreciate that very
Oh,
much.
sure. Yeah.
However, I do have a couple of just like little folk instruments that I like to play around with sometimes,
Oh,
but it's
cool.
it's nothing too serious anymore.
Okay.
When I was in high school, I was in a couple of bands, and
Cool.
we played some shows, we wrote some songs. It no, was never anything too serious though.
Sure. 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 You never wanted to like go down that road, or you just got caught up with other things?
I think it would have been fun, but it was definitely more so getting caught up in other things. I met my wife, the band broke up. We tried getting back together a few times. It never really worked out. We moved down to the city so my wife could go to school here, and then I eventually drifted more towards writing, and it's just kind of been that ever since.
Awesome. How old are you now?
I'm 25.
Oh, wow. No kidding, dude. That's pretty cool. I guess I would have guessed you were a little bit older, I guess, but maybe it's because the facial hair or something. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, I get that a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, that's pretty cool. So you're a young dude. You're working in music journalism. There's probably a lot of people that would really like to be doing that, don't you think?
Probably, yeah. I'm very fortunate to have worked my way into the space that I found.
So, what advice would you give someone who wants to find their way into the music journalism space?
Start small and start broad. You know, like I said, I didn't start out writing for a music magazine. I started out writing for literary magazines, which is a great way to get started for anyone who wants to get into writing at all. Because literary magazines will really, most of them at least, will publish anything. They don't have like set topics. You have to write this. As long as it's a good piece, they will run it. And it's not a very quick process. The first article I ever got published, I think that I got the email that it was going to get ran like 6 months after I submitted it, and that's pretty industry standard. It is a long waiting time for people who don't have a portfolio to present.
Right. And so, in doing that and writing for literary magazines, you're essentially just building up a portfolio that you then parlay into a different adjacent industry where those skill sets are relevant. Right.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's awesome, man.
It's really when you're getting started, it's all a matter of getting those first few articles out there so that you have something to say, hey, I'm not just some rando. This is my work, you know?
Sure. Yeah, totally. With a lot of the types of conversations that I've been having on this show, a recurring theme has been, and this is a lot of stuff I've learned from people a lot smarter than me, is that if you want to create opportunities and find inroads to different industries that you may not be experienced in, or if you don't have a degree in, for certain things, obviously, it really just boils down to building some type of public facing asset. So I guess in your case, that's a portfolio of articles that are public facing. And that concept, I think, is just evergreen across a lot of different things. And that's one of the things that I'm looking to cover on this show.
Yeah. It's fortunate in journalism that there are so many different publications now, um, that you really can just write an article and kind of just bomb emails with your stuff. Not that you
Yeah.
should, go to the same email again and again and again and again. Hey, this is my piece. This is my piece. But you can find, you know, 100 different publications and send it around. One of them is probably going to say yes, and you only need the one.
Right, totally. And how do you go about getting their contact information, like their email?
You know, smaller publications, even bigger ones, but smaller ones specifically, have it usually just listed, because like literary magazines, they don't tend to go out and seek out people who will write for them. Usually
It's
people
very
come to
inbound
them.
centric. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's really not so hard to find places to submit to. The hard part is just waiting for that first yes.
Yeah, totally. And how long does that did that take you, and how long could someone else expect that first yes to take?
My first one, it was about 5, 6 months. I think I
Oh yeah,
wrote
you
the
mentioned.
piece
Yeah.
in December, and I want to say it was about May when I got the yes. And it wasn't the only magazine that I had submitted to. I had submitted that to probably about 20 others, and I had gotten a
Right.
handful of rejections beforehand.
Wow.
Rejections come in a lot faster than approvals,
Yeah,
for
for
sure.
sure. What's the most memorable moment that you've had as a music journalist?
Ooh, the first time I got into a show for free so I could write a piece about it.
Do you remember what show it was?
It was actually Disco. I had messaged them just to say, hey, I'm gonna be here writing this piece because I didn't want to um, show up and write it and just have it be like oh hey, look at this thing I did in case something happened. I don't know. I thought it would be polite.
Sure.
And uh, I say I got in for free. I had already bought a ticket, but they wanted to give me one. Um, that's what really made me feel legitimized as a journalist for the first time.
Right on. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty cool. How do you go about promoting your stuff?
When you're new, it's very difficult. It's a lot of social media and just putting it out wherever you can. because you put something out there, only a handful of people are gonna follow through with actually looking at it, and even less are gonna read through the whole thing.
Right,
So it
totally.
really is just putting it wherever people will see it. I'm to a point now where I'm writing for a publication which is substantially larger than any social media following I have. So really,
Because they handle a lot of the promotion on their end.
yeah, they'll make a post when I put out an article, and then it's like collaborative, so it also goes on my account. But like, let's be
Right.
honest, it's all people who are following them seeing my work.
Sure, sure. Would you say that music journalism is a highly competitive space?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There are a lot
I
of
would
people in
imagine.
it, and a lot of people who want to get into it.
Yeah, I would imagine. That makes sense. I guess I already asked you a little bit about how someone could stand out and get involved in that space. Um, have you ever experienced any burnout from working this job?
Definitely. I mentioned before that that first magazine I wrote for, it got to a point where it kind of stalled out. Um, for maybe the last 2 months I was working there, I was pretty much the only person who was publishing. There would
Wow.
every couple of weeks someone else would put something out, but I was pretty much the only person consistently giving them articles. And it got to the point where, you know, the process of editing went from like, oh, a day to get a piece submitted to an editor and then back to you and then back to them and then actually published, to now it's like a couple of days, now it's a week, and now it's like I don't think that the last piece I ever submitted ever even actually got finished.
How much money can someone expect to make if they get into this space, both in the short term and long term?
Short term, initially getting into it, expect to make nothing. You were in pretty much any journalism field, you're going to start out writing just for the portfolio. Long term, if you get in with a really good big named publication, you can make a lot of money doing this. I would say standard fare, you're looking at a pretty comfortable living though.
Do you ever see yourself trying to ascend to a certain type of role within journalism or a different part of the industry at all, or not necessarily?
I don't know. I really enjoy writing about music. I think that it's important to not work yourself into a niche. Like we were talking about earlier with the bands that get too big. You can get too big in any field, and at that point, you pretty much just become a character of yourself.
Yeah, totally.
And I would hate to get stuck just writing the same thing over and over and over, because that's where that burnout really does come from.
Gotcha.
So I don't have any plans as of right now to try to break into a different part of journalism. However, I can't see myself only writing about music forever.
Are there any other topics that you could see yourself writing about that you're like really interested in or passionate about?
I do really enjoy politics. It's a very um, hot field, you know.
Totally. Yeah.
People get upset, people get very heated, and that's something that's somewhat off-putting to me. However, I think it's a very important thing, even for the negative view a lot of people seem to have for political journalists these days. I think it's important that people are reporting about these things, because otherwise we would have no idea what's going on within our government.
Totally. Yeah, you're right. It's definitely one of those things that's tough to talk about. Like, I personally am very interested in it too, but on this, I'm also, admittedly quite ignorant. I don't spend as much time like reading into politics as I guess I'd like to. Um, I guess part of that's just lazy, but it's like it almost seems like if you're going to publicly talk about about politics, you should have like a really good handle on both, your own opinions and facts, but also the opposing people's evidence too, and that's
Sure.
takes a lot of time.
Yeah, there's so much out there, and you know, each side of the political spectrum uh, plays to their own interests to at least some degree. So not only do you have to monitor the kind of things that you agree with, but also what you don't agree with, and also just everything in between to try to figure out like what is really true and what is maybe being uh, played up to fit an agenda or really just like a way of looking at things.
Totally. Yeah. Where do you see the role of independent journalism within the realm of politics? Do you find that to be rather important?
I do. There is a point where when you are working for a really, really big publication in politics that you could find yourself just writing propaganda. If something gets too big and too out of control, they're going to have their own interests and they're going to want you to write specifically to those interests. So I think it's very important that we have independent journalists who aren't really interested in that. They're just interested more so in documenting what exactly is going on.
100%. Are there any like types of publications or lesser known, maybe independent news sources that you've personally found value in? Because I guess there's a
So
lot more popping up, you know?
there is. It's something that uh, here lately with how divisive politics have become, it's becoming more popular because I just think that people don't really want to see something that's spitting an agenda in their face. They kind of just want to
Totally.
see like what is happening.
Yeah.
And one newsroom that I follow very closely is Channel 5 News on
Andrew
YouTube.
Callahan.
Yep, you know it, man.
Yeah.
That's in my opinion the gold standard.
I think he's fantastic. You know,
I do too.
he hangs out with Alex Jones, and then he also hangs out with Hunter Biden. I really enjoyed the Hunter Biden interviews he's recently been posting.
Yeah, I
They're
really
entertaining.
respect that he does not put his opinion into any of his pieces. He's really just out there
Yeah,
talking to
totally.
people and filming what they say.
Yeah, I really like how he immerses himself into the cultures, whether that's like, what are they called? The furry communities that he goes to, or he'll go to
Oh
like
yeah,
NASCAR festivals. He really just does like, he immerses himself so deeply in all these subcultures, and it's just so interesting. I'm a huge fan of him. And also on that same note about more independent news sources, I'm pretty sure one of his sponsors is Ground News, and that's
yeah.
a newer, I guess, media source that aims to be a lot more independent and unbiased. I also think of Rad Indie Media. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'm not
Um,
familiar with that one. No.
okay. What types of people should consider music journalism as a career, barring obviously people who are interested in music? Are there certain type of skill sets that people tend to have in this space?
The first thing you need to be able to do to write about music is just be able to write. Um, I know that sounds just like blatantly obvious, but if you can't write a really compelling piece to begin with, then, maybe you could put out a few really good things for something you're extremely passionate about, if that is music, but eventually you're going to find yourself writing the same thing over and over and over again.
So I guess this question might be a bit redundant because you just touched on this, but my next question was, does this sort of job hire more based on experiences and specific like skill sets or like portfolio pieces and networking?
It's definitely a mixture. Obviously if you know the editor in chief of a magazine, you got a better chance of getting in than someone who doesn't. But if you've never written anything before, they're probably not going to just pick you up off the street and give you your first shot like that. Usually you
Totally.
need something to display and just show to them like what you can do.
Yeah. Whether that's even in a different, like we talked about earlier, adjacent niche that might not be the same, but you can, of course,
Definitely.
yeah, parlay those. Um, how many years have you been working in this industry?
This one specifically, not very long. I don't even think it's been a full year. I have been writing for about two now, but it it really pivoted into music last November, I think. So it's coming up on a year.
Okay, sure. Yeah, my question was going to be, has the music industry changed much at all since you've started? But I guess that wouldn't be applicable if you've only been in it about a year. So before you were writing, you were in college, right? You mentioned.
Right.
What was your college experience like?
College is pretty cool. I definitely enjoyed it. I don't think, anything too special. I went to class, I had some friends, I did my thing. It was going very well. looking back now, I can definitely see how I got to journalism from where I was because I was always much more interested in my English classes than I was my actual computer science classes.
Right.
So I think had I stayed long term and actually graduated, I probably still wouldn't have permanently stayed in that field. But I think it was an important experience for me that it definitely taught me a lot.
And what originally got you into computer science?
I needed something to do. So I didn't graduate high school and go immediately into college. I was off for maybe about a year in between where I worked as a machinist. What I did was I ran lathes making parts for steel mills, and I wrote programs for these lathes so that
Whoa.
the program went in the machine and it told the machine what to do. And so the jump from that to computer science wasn't too terribly big of one for me.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, what did you do during that year in between high school and college?
Mostly just working. I read a lot, which I suppose also probably contributed to me
Totally.
getting into writing. But
Yeah.
working at a machine shop, which is part of the reason why I left, is just insane hours. I would work from 5 in the morning until
Jeez.
3:30, 5 o'clock sometimes in the
Yeah,
afternoon,
that's
Monday through
tough.
Saturday.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was very
How
all
how
consuming.
how did you get that job though?
So when I was in high school, I did vocational classes for machining. My father's
Wow.
machinist, my grandfather was machinist, his father was machinist. It was just the family trade. I was a kid in school, and here in America, you kind of got to figure out what you want to do in high school, or you'll get kicked out of the system. And
Yeah.
it's a lot harder to figure out if you don't go directly from high school into something.
Totally.
So I think I made that jump pretty prematurely because I wasn't entirely sure what else to do. But what can I say? It really did all work out in the end.
Yeah, it sounds like it. If you like what you do and it's working out, yeah, that's awesome, man. So you mentioned that you come from a generation of machinists. So when you decided to kind of go a different direction in music, what was that tough with like your family, or were they rather supportive?
No, they were pretty supportive.
Oh, awesome.
So for one thing, my family's also all musicians, more so even than I am. My dad currently plays in a band. My grandfather plays music.
Wow, no kidding.
And something I found out about my dad uh, after getting into journalism is that he went to college for journalism. He wanted to be a writer.
Well, and he didn't because he just went the machinist route, I guess.
So I don't have the full story of what happened, but I believe what happened is that he dropped out and think that it was just that school wasn't really for him, which I could believe because I don't really think it was totally for me either. Part of the reason why I don't go back and get a degree in journalism, it's just not something that really plays to my strong suits.
Right.
That like
Okay.
rigid structure, I've found much more success from going about it and blazing a trail by my own rules.
Have you ever like thought of or like considered starting like a YouTube channel where you reach out to smaller like indie groups that you cover and interview them, like I guess like this, and then have that bolster your writing efforts at all?
I have, it's more and more important now that you do multimedia journalism. It's hard
Totally.
to just be a writer. There's a lot more notoriety and opportunity in it if you can cover multiple formats. And that's something I'm interested in breaking into, but it's something that I'm still kind of working on figuring out. Um, it like I said, I've been writing in music journalism for a little under a year now, and I've really started to get a foothold now, um, to a point where I think I could start, like, say, a YouTube channel where I cover things that either would be uh, something that maybe I couldn't quite write about because honestly, sitting down and just talking about it is definitely easier than writing about
Right.
it, or doing interviews. But it's also something that there's a certain level of investment to begin getting into that more so a time thing of figuring out how it all works for me
Mm.
before I think I'm ready to really make the plunge.
Yeah, so you're using the momentum that you have been like recently gaining and writing, and as you get into the swing of like a new career over the past year, and you could see yourself maybe doing that over the next like more of a long term thing potentially.
Definitely.
Right on. Yeah, I think you should, man. That'd be cool, and I feel like it would be a great way to supplement the efforts of writing. Because, like you said, I mean, you already said it, right? It's like you kind of have to do a little bit of it all. If you like, multimedia is the term you used.
For sure.
So I think we covered all the questions I had on this list. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
Um, Nothing that really comes to mind, man. It's been a pretty comprehensive interview.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. What do you want to plug? Where can people find you?
You can find me on Music Scene Media, Dusty Hayes. I'm all over there. You can also follow me on my Instagram, where you can find not only the things that I'm writing for them, but other projects I'm working on. Once again, Dusty Hayes. And if you are interested, you want to send me your music or you have any other things you'd like to pitch my way, you can contact me at my email. That's dustyhsearles@gmail.com, Serles.
I'll be sure to put that in the description too. But yeah, I really
Definitely.
enjoyed talking to you, man. This was very interesting. I think you, as someone who's a young guy and works in music journalism, I think that's something that is really interesting to a lot of people. Obviously, everyone's into music; it brings people closer together. Yeah, it was really interesting. I really appreciated how you broke down your advice for people and how they could get started in the space. I thought your advice to, write. Whether it's in a different space and just write something that was really good advice. So thanks for doing this, man. I enjoyed this.
Thanks for having me on, man. It's been great.
Awesome, man.